Hi, good morning for this session, which I think has been something we've all been talking about through this pandemic on how things have been changing for us when it comes to the consumption of content. Evolving content and kind of linking it up with the rise of OTT in post-COVID scenario. Just to set things in motion, I was looking at, this whole value chain, if one were to look at, of entertainment. I would go by, say, 4 or 5 stakeholders. At one level is someone like me. I would be the viewer. And we have content creators here. We have the platforms, and above all, we have a ministry voice as well, to take us through how the dynamics of the changing entertainment consumption. I would begin by, somewhere coming into this, before I open it and kind of we start on with the conversation, I would begin with it, with my own experience. I am someone that the streaming platforms would have really kind of, if not hated, disliked at least, and ignored, 3 years back, because I was like one of those hardcore cinema viewer who would not watch anything on the streaming platforms. I would go to the cinema hall to watch films. I barely had any subscriptions going, and come 2020 and things completely changed. I mean, I may not have had a smart TV, but I ensured I got a Fire TV stick. I got subscriptions for all the streaming platforms. And, I was consuming content in a very diverse and also very personalized way. I mean, I was kind of looking into things, from my own perspective as well. And many things emerged, fascination for stuff like, the Malayalam cinema grew, for K-dramas grew, which is something, standing outside of myself, I wouldn't have ever imagined myself doing, So for me, the change has been visible. I would want to, kind of begin this conversation by, maybe Akshay, you should be the one to kind of start off in that. When did you see, did you really see this, this sense of a cusp of a change? Is it something like we look at it from one side as something which happened very suddenly, depending on my personal experience? But was it all that sudden? Did you see the change come into play over a period of time? How have you seen this scenario emerge?
Well, I think we all saw this change happening around us since the time Netflix actually entered into the game. However, we were not very sure of what we like and what we want to watch. We're still wanting to be, watching the content in more in theaters, and even including myself. Um, Today, I take this opportunity. In a way, it's actually a little sad day for us that Vikramji is not doing well at the moment. But we started with my first film, AB and CD. I got an opportunity to work with him, to be with him. What happened was there was an adversity in our lives at that point in time when we and our partners, Golden Ratio, we released a film, the same film, AB and CD. We released the film the day when the lockdown was announced. So it was like, it was not something that we wanted to do, but that happened to us. Naturally, going forward, Amazon, acquired the rights of the film, and they kind of streamed it on their platform. At that point in time, a lot of things in my life and my teams and my company's lives changed for us, because the way OTT platforms which were present at that point in time required, and the hunger for the content was so prevalent. That was the striking thing for me, and we decided that, and everybody thought that COVID might go in a week or 2 weeks, and that went on and on and on and on. At one point we thought, what if this scenario doesn't end at all? which is where you now could see a lot of this technological, the companies which are not into content, but they all kind of bloomed. Swiggy, Zomato, and all of that. Everything became like delivery at your house, in your house. So I thought this is the best way. And honestly speaking, I didn't think of an OTT. We thought that we should come out with something wherein we can give content to people sitting at homes. And for us, when we got into the whole structuring part, that is where we thought that, okay, probably we are heading towards starting an OTT. And I think the decision was not wrong. We are here, the OTT is here for probably next decade or even more. And I feel that we'll talk about certain things later on. Thank you.
The growth of OTT also means, policy decisions. It means intervention, in terms of initiatives which government could come up with. Mr. Kumar, I'm going to come to you on that. But before that, I would want, Shobha, you and Lada to talk about, this phenomenon in terms of this very turbulent year we've had at the cinemas, and after about 2.5 years, I traveled to Bombay again recently, and each and every person I was meeting there was making a web series, whereas at one point in time, being in Bombay was all about making films, So, in terms of the entertainment industry, where there is the film side of it, what kind of a challenge has it called upon, for you guys, or has it opened possibilities? I mean, what has been the response from the creators?
Firstly, thank you for having me here. Namrata, when you spoke about audience, it's not just you, even we are the audience. The makers are also, the platforms are also the audience. So I don't think our taste has changed as much, we've adapted. There are certain necessary trends that happen. COVID was one of them, none of us planned for it. We all got caught in the house with, though we worked longer hours, at least I can speak that about myself. We worked much longer hours, but we still were saving a lot of time, and we were in this anxious mode. We all wanted to catch up and see what is happening. We were watching, as you rightly said, K-dramas, all types of content which I had never explored before. We've all seen that. Having said that, I think this is just a temporary phase. This year, yes, we've not done very well, but post-COVID, when we opened theaters, the first hit that we did have was Suryavanshi. It did pretty well. Some of the films after that have not done well. We still have another Rohit Shetty film releasing this year. The year's not over. So I would say that there is hope. Yes, the others have not done well, but a lot of it is about the way we were structuring our own content. I think we got into a phase where we had it easy. People were coming in based on the star system, based on whatever other things, the directors. Some of the content we try to play safe, which is a trend like any other. Like fashion follows a trend, somebody starts a color and then the color works. Or bell bottoms, they came in, now they're called boot cuts. It's all cyclic. When the VHS came in, we all thought cinema is over, but this is a phase. I think this is time for us to sit back, reevaluate and get back, recalibrate and go back. I think both will coexist. Like when the VHS came in, they said that, oh, people will never go back to the cinema now. You can hire a player at 100 rupees and at 20 rupees, you can watch whatever film that you want. 10 people in a house can watch a film. Why would you go back to the theater, which is costing you so much? We did go back. So the point is, I think we just need to up the game. And while we are now realizing what the audience likes or doesn't like, or it just could be a lot of commercial aspects to this post-COVID. A lot of us have lost jobs. There have been deaths in the families. We're still unstable mentally at some level to go and just be there and enjoy ourselves or spend that type of money. Because a cinema outing in a place like Mumbai is expensive. While the ticket may cost you just 350 or 400 rupees on a weekend, the F&B costs you about 3-4 times as much. So a family of 4 going in is definitely a dent in the pocket. So these are things that we'll have to figure out. We'll have to understand how we want to do this. It's not just the content, because when you look at films that have broken out, like we keep saying South is taken over, South is taken over, But other than Telugu, which has had a phenomenal year, with RRR, and we expected that. I mean, Rajamouli after Bahubali, of course we expected it. But in Hindi also, we've had Bansali give us a Gangubai, which is not done badly. The point is, we've not had the big directors release those big films. Some of them that did come, like now we've had Drishyam. So I won't write it off as yet. Yes, there is always time to sit back, contemplate as to what we're doing right and wrong, and go back to the drawing board and say, is this the content that we should back or not? It's got nothing to do with audience changing. It's about us. We are the audience too. Is this a story that you want to put on screen or not? It's as simple as that.
Lada, I would want you to weigh in on that as well. I mean, have you, like Shobha said, that, things are kind of in the process of perhaps evening out. There will be a much more even feel that one would get to see. But you, as someone backing content, has your eye, has your perception, has your, this move to green light projects, has that seen any kind of swing here,
Good morning, everybody. Namrata, as you would be aware of this phrase, and Shobha and everybody would be on the dais too, people would say, project banate hain. I think that phrase is dead. Nobody at least is talking about, making a project to turn that into a sure shot success, because the definition of sure shot success has actually undergone a change. And since I'm an eternal optimist, I look at this phase as a blessing in disguise for all of us, In my conversations with, the artists and the directors and filmmakers, and of course people sitting on this side of the fence, it has opened everybody's eyes as to what is it that we are actually doing wrong. Because somewhere the audiences are forcing us, and of course we are also audiences, that we need to be honest to the content we create. If we look at, Drishyam, that comes, with Ajay Devgan, who's not really, in his typical avatar, and does the numbers that it does. You get a Kantara that brings in, that marries folklore with mythology in the context of, land grabbing with government officials and tribals, and turns that into a 400 crore, rupee monster at the box office. Or you have a film like Kartikeya 2, which is, about Krishna's anklet being used to, help with the medicine. And all these are non-people, all these were led by stars that people were not aware of. So clearly what it has done is that it has evolved the audience's taste to go and try content. It has made our lives easier, wherein we don't have to bend backwards and actually lose our breath over, if this star does not work, the film will not work. I think it has given us a bit of a leeway to go ahead and try for things, that wouldn't have been possible otherwise. Today, as we are setting up Shaktiman, I can tell you, with a great degree of humility, that it is because of the people and their possibility to, look at different content, that we are not really going with the biggest director out there, but we are going with a very, very talented director who we know is going to become somebody very big. And that's primarily only because we know that the audiences today are willing to put their money behind the names and behind the content that really matters.
I'd like to bring Mr. Kumar into the picture here now, because with, such a dynamic environment that we've heard, the three speakers talk about, how does the ministry step in? I mean, it's a global phenomenon, and I mean, people are responding the world over to it. Any policy incentives, any interventions, any initiatives, how have you responded to this situation in the industry, the entertainment industry at the moment?
First of all, good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me here. And all the eminent panelists who are mostly from the film industry, who are making the content. But we are sitting here from the other side. We are the ones who are probably, in some way judging the content or regulating the content, which we don't want to do much. So I am Prithul Kumar. I look after the film section from the government side, and I hope my team NFDC here is making you comfortable in the film bazaar and the IFI. I would like to begin you by asking a question to all of you, that has anyone here seen the National Museum of Indian Cinema in Mumbai? So there are just 2, 3 hands, 4, 5 hands up. So I'm really happy because, the last time I asked this question, I could see only 1 hand up in some other session. So that is the place which has been created, and I think it's a fabulous museum. Anywhere in the world, it matches up to the international standards. And the best thing which it gives is how the content of Indian cinema has evolved. Tracing it back from the silent era, and then, of course, then the studio movies, and then the impact of World War II, and so on and so forth. So it's a wonderful place to visit and see how the content of Indian cinema has evolved. So I'll request everyone here on the dais, as well as all the people attending the Film Bazaar, if ever you get a chance to be in Mumbai and get some first half off or second half, a half of the day, it's a wonderful place to visit if you are a cinema indulger. Then let's come to the beginning, because India is the land which has produced the greatest of the epics, from Ramayana and Mahabharata. And so on, it went on with Vedas. And so India has been traditionally, as we call it, it has been the land of storytellers. So we had a lot of content bank and building. The content was kept on building as the times changed. But I think the real revolution which took place was the mobile phones, or rather the smartphones when it was given to everyone. And it had 2 sides, of course. The other side, the side of the camera, it made everybody a filmmaker, a content maker. So, you could do the content, and anybody who wishes to tell a story, he can do the content. Then the other side of it, it is also like a TV screen. So you had access to technologies which were collaborative technologies like YouTube and all, where the content could be uploaded and the people can see it. So at the same time you can make your content, you could also see anybody's content. So this was one of the biggest democratization of content which I feel that happened at that point in time. And then came this OTTs, which was, of course, an offshoot of what was happening. That we were blowing up with content accumulating, and we had medium to express it. You cannot restrict yourself to YouTube's, or to the extent the cinema was too small to absorb so much of content getting created. So, of course, this YouTube, where you have, again a marvel of democratization, that, content can be uploaded at will, and also you have the choice of viewing the content. And you can, flip it over and all that. It's at your leisure that you can change the content. So much as that now we are talking about that, correct me if I'm wrong, that Netflix says that, normally people who don't watch any content spend about 18 minutes searching for a content, and they eventually drop off. So that is what I think they have eventually led to a button called Surprise Me on that, if you go onto your login, this thing. So they have this Surprise Me, because, people are not able to find the right content for themselves. So this is the kind of journey which we have seen in terms of content. Of course, COVID had restricted us into the 4 walls, and then OTT was a big support. And of course, there was internet, and but content per se has also other dimensions, like we see from the government's perspective. There had been debates and about the self-regulation of content, because the content which goes into the OTT or the YouTube doesn't require a censor certification. So only the cinematic exhibition requires a censor certification from the government. But in OTTs, it is most of self-regulation. So you see those UA markers with age specifications, which is not mandatory. Of course, anybody can see it, but then it's just a guiding principle which we have put in there. And there is a requirement, and if you see the last COVID times, I would say that there was a spurt in the kind of content which was being made, which used abusive language as a medium of expression. I don't know, there are debates wherein it said that, it was just too much of it to attract people to, to their content, which I think is not really correct. And there is requirement of self-regulation for that content. And I would just like to finish up by saying that, the content is also getting modified by the way it is getting captured. Now they're not, just talks of taking a shot. Now there are talks about making a shot, like visual effects and animation are a game changer. And in the times to come, you'll find the way the content is getting made, you know, something which is getting shot here, it'll appear on a beach or maybe in the space, whatever. I mean, it's transformational. I mean, I've seen some bit of it getting made, and the content is, of course, going to get a lot of transformation with it. And then we hear about this metaverse coming into in a big way. It's not just going to, I feel that it's not just going to make the way we do content in a big way, but also the way we see content. Maybe, you know, the content will become immersive. You would have some technology which would make you a part of the content while watching. I mean, this is what we kind of think like that. So the content is evolving, but then we have to stick back that when in India the content are getting made, whenever we're making policies, we try to emphasize and embed into our policies that the Indian stories, which come from a lot of ethos and all, they get picked up into the content and they get developed. So, and I believe you me that this kind of, we really don't have much exposure to all the various regions, these stories. Like Kantara being discussed here was one of the stories which came out. Every village, every town has a different story to tell besides the recorded stories. So I would urge the filmmakers in India that they fish out for the right content and develop into a good story, and the way you project it is going to, of course, you know, do a lot of help to the Indian content. Thank you.
Mr. Kumar, I'll pick it up from here. You know, Kantara is mentioned, RRR is mentioned. You're talking about Drishyam 2, which you know, kind of goes back to, you know, the Mohanlal film. And from what I've been hearing, I've not been able to watch it as yet, is that, you know, it's not a remake, but there is an element of adaptation involved. And this has been one phenomenon which I think has been the best part of what has happened in the last a couple of years, which is that, you know, at times we were not aware of the kind of cinema which was happening all over the country, and now bit by bit, you know, we are picking up, we are kind of learning, we are seeing. In that context, Akshay, you know, your streaming platform, you know, how significant has been the gain for you, you know, when it comes to, you know, this awareness about language programming, language cinema?
See, I believe that, content is not only just getting local. What he said is absolutely right. It is now gone hyper local. And, when we started, we actually didn't have the clue as to what we are supposed, for us, everything was a startup, every single thing was a startup. So to source content, to ask the filmmakers to come and make the content, give them their required budgets, hear their stories out, and to figure out what will work in Marathi and what will not work in Marathi was some sort of a, you can call that as an experiment also. But later on, we got hold of what we were doing, and what we realized was, how deep you get into people's lives, in the sense not deep, but how you get into the regular life of, say, a Mumbaikar or somebody, or maybe a story which has a tainted cop in it, or something like a drug lord or something else. Such stories really matters for the audience who's sitting at home and watching it on their OTT. That's where, we made a lot of content, but for us, the striking content that we made and we produced and also we streamed it was Ran Bazaar. For us, Ran Bazaar literally broke everything, all our notions, and, we at that particular point in time, we thought that we strike gold. And we have the maker here, Abhijit Panse, director, is sitting here with us. And he was telling me, this is where we actually come to know, we have to involve faith in the director, the team, and try and get stories from them. And that's where we thought Ran Bazaar did a fabulous job for us, because it involved cops, it involved the whole, the underworld and all of those things. And it really worked well for us. Later on, we moved on to doing a lot of other stuff also. But honestly speaking, what I feel is that as much as hyper local you get, it works very well for a OTT. That's what my experience is so far.
Will we see more such synergy, Shobha and Lada, in terms of, the content generation? And I'm being a little bit of a devil's advocate here because, in the morning at breakfast, I was talking to Bharadwaj Rangan, my fellow critic and colleague, and he was saying that perhaps a bit too much is being made about the success of Kantara and RRR, because and perhaps too much is being made of how Bollywood is not working. Whereas he says that if you really go into the the nitty-gritty of it, the numbers of it, so for every RRR that is a huge hit, there are 10 flops also which never catch the eye. So I would want to know that in such a scenario, where on the one hand you do find an awareness coming in about language content, and on the other hand, also a lot many things being ignored, perhaps not consciously, perhaps unconsciously. Where is the middle ground? What kind of synergy are we going to see?
I'll start first by saying, yes, I do agree that a lot is being made about Hindi cinema not working and South taking over. South is too generic. It's like the rest of India calls all of them Madrasis. No, we're not. So there are now 5 states. Each one has a plus and a minus, and I think Telugu has done extremely well because of the specific cinema. Similarly, Kannada has done 2 breakouts. So there's been a KGF also which has moved in. It's specific cinema that has worked. Industry as a whole, if you balance it out, take these 3 films out, they are more or less in the same state that Hindi cinema is in. So we've always been leaders. The thing about Hindi cinema has been that we've been leaders. We've always had about 40% of the successes attributed to Hindi cinema, which has gone down drastically. But this is 1 year. Suddenly changing gears and saying we should do more regional or we should get there. Of course we should do regional cinema. I think it's all about identifying with who you are, the local audiences increasing, all of that. But by making more content, I don't think we get any deeper into the audience's mind. I just think that we need more, all other delivery platforms need to reach that much. So the platforms that came in initially only catered to a small segment of India. I don't think they even thought regional. They didn't understand what it was about. Abusive language was just because we didn't have a censor. Everyone thought that was it. There was a lot of experimentation, if that's the word I should use. We were pushing the envelope, making things unnecessarily edgy, where we start craving for simplistic stories. That's when a Minnal Murli also comes in. And you say, okay, this is simple. It's a story that we all know. And look at how sweetly it's been treated. When you come back to that, I don't think it's about regional or Hindi or whatever. If you look at the rest of cinema, you look at Punjabi, Marathi, Bengali, there has been trouble because these are audiences who've also been affected, especially the employed segment. Especially with Marathi, I feel that it's become very cost sensitive. To go to a theatre today has become more expensive, especially when you know that 8 weeks later it's available on the OTT. So they prefer waiting until and unless it's a breakout film where you definitely want to go and experience it on the large screen. So for me, it's not about regional or Hindi or this language versus that language. It's all about what content and what relatability. There are stories that you say in regional cinema which works for that region. Hindi has also adapted a lot of other films. Like Drishyam, we remade a lot of other films which didn't work. The constant conversation was remakes are not working. They were not working because we'd all sat at home and seen the originals. Why are we going to spend money to go and see the same film again with a different star? That didn't matter. But the moment you adapt it, you make it local. So the flavor definitely is local. I don't think we can change that. The other thing that you said, very importantly, is to find the new voices. I think a platform like this is very important, like what IFI does. Most of our directors today have emerged as indie filmmakers. So whether we speak about Anurag Kashyap, we speak about Hansal Mehta, films like Lunchbox, all these have been discovered at festivals like these. It's very important that there is a platform given to them. Larger studios like us or even independent filmmakers get an opportunity to meet and we create something which is far better as an environment, as a norm, rather than doing it as an anomaly. Because right now what we're talking about is one film amongst the 100 odd that got released and made the difference. I think we need to be a little more consistent, if that's the word.
What do you have to say, Lada, about that?
I concur with what Shobha has said, and I'll just take that, extend that quickly. There are 2-3 things to this. One, of course, what kind of content is really working. If we just take a bird's eye view, I think largely what audiences are telling us is that we need to celebrate the country, we need to celebrate the idea of India, and we need to go back to the characters who are flesh and blood. You know, if you see today, most of the filmmakers, the way they make films, and I'm talking of, you know, the pot boilers that come out, you can replace the actor, and the film will still work or not work. So what is the uniqueness that they are able to bring? A KGF works because the character of Yash has been given those layers. A Pushpa works because Allu Arjun's character has been given those layers. Or a Kantara works, or an RRR, because they're celebrating the idea of India. So I think within that, structure, I think there's a lot to play with. The other idea that I think is very, very crucial, as Shobha was mentioning, was that the adaptation has to be, it can't be a remake, it has to be an adaptation. You have to bring in a local flavor, because the local flavor will stay. It is not going anywhere. The exciting part for us as filmmakers, as film producers today, is that because of the cross-pollination of talent, we are actually working with a large pool of talent. So it need not be that we have to make a film in Telugu or Tamil or Malayalam to basically, take it to the audiences. We can still bring that talent into Hindi, or take that Hindi talent into those languages and still find that success. And lastly, at Sony, we've actually ventured into Telugu this year. We came up with a film called Major, which actually celebrated Sandeep Unnikrishnan's, act of bravery in 26/11. We made it into Telugu and Hindi. It was with a young Telugu star, and we made it into a pan-India release. Similarly, our next film in Tamil, which is a co-production with Kamal Hassan sir, it is again a celebration of India's might. So there is a definite rediscovery of India that is happening. It is happening at the level of patriotic films. It is also happening at the level of, are we able to bring in the mythology and the folklore and turn that and bring that to the audiences. And it is generally happening at a level where people are wanting to move beyond Bandra Juhu, Namrata.
But one thing which we've discussed, a diverse set of issues. But one thing which has struck me in the past 2 years is that in this debate of the streaming platforms in cinema, somewhere television has gotten completely out of the picture. And Mr. Kumar, I'd like you also to kind of weigh in on that, because we all are caught in this debate about cinema and streaming platforms, and we are just not talking about television at all, or is it that we are in a batch of this this bubble, privileged bubble, which perhaps doesn't choose to cast an eye on that? How do you see the scenario? And Mr. Kumar, you start off, and then I'd like you also to weigh in on that. Yeah.
So TV, I think it's got its own audience, and it's still picking up because we keep receiving demands as to, new channels coming up, new uplinking required. There is always a big constraint on the transponder because, the availability of transponder for uplinking is very limited. So we're facing challenge in terms of grant of permissions, and the costs are getting higher. But I think TV is still in demand for a lot of people. The free dish is also available, like the antennas which you used to have for DD. So that free dish, the government puts that, then this is Tata Sky and Airtel and all these people are also there. People do watch a lot of news on that, I'm sure. And a lot of soap operas, which are very popular. Of course, the OTTs have got their own space now. They have created a niche. See, because OTT gives you a platform where you can watch it on the go. Now, I think the TV has also moved on to that. Like Tata Play, you have an app which you can watch on the go. So I see a lot of people doing that also. So it's not right to say that, the TV is getting ignored. So it's not getting ignored. And of course, because there is a surge in demand. because the mobile phones, because of the availability of TVs and the internet getting connected. So there's a surge in the content demand. So that is why all these are picking up. Maybe TV is picking up less, OTT is picking up more, but then they are picking up.
Yeah, I completely agree with him. I think television is, according to me, the least or the less affected in terms of what has OTT done to the cinema or the theater. I personally feel that talking about Marathi television, it is still doing very, very well, and those prime times are rising every day. It is not really hampering so much, and probably that's because a lot of homemakers are watching it, and they're still wanting to see the same set of talent and actors and actresses that probably are not a part of OTT. However, there are a few channels who've approached us asking for our content, kind of syndicating it with the television. And when I asked them, what are you going to do with our content? I mean, okay, we don't have abusive language and everything. The content is good, but how are you going to stream it? Because it's a, we have a series, so they are probably now thinking of, I think you would probably have a better idea over it, that every week probably they would want to go with one episode, and if we have like 7 episodes, then they would want to probably go with those 7 episodes. So if you ask me if OTT has dented the television, I don't think so. It is doing very, very well, at least in Marathi. But I also feel that now that Planet Marathi is also available on Tata Play, a lot of other OTTs are also available on Tata Play, or other Geos, Geo TVs and LG stores and everywhere. I think is television going OTT, or is OTT going television? That's a little bit of confusion. Probably whatever it is, I think the content makers are going to have a great time.
Do you agree?
So I have I agree in a manner. See, television is for the slightly older generation. I'm sorry, I'm being very generic out here. It's for the slightly older generation who are not technologically savvy and who do not have those multiple apps to watch what they want. They have their comfort, especially regional. The comfort is so much that they will go back to TV. At the same time, what happens in the smaller towns of India, where there are power cuts and things like that, the OTT gives you catch-up television. So you can watch what you've missed out on your power cut. So I think we will all coexist. One will depend on the other. The formats will cross into each other. And the way that you would view it, the platforms could be different, but the content and the audience will still be the same for each material. I think we need to focus on the material that we are making. Who are we making that for? It will find its home. I think it's very divisive to say one goes, the other doesn't come. Like the VHS, finally, there was a reason why VHS stopped. Because a new platform, the new format of a DVD came in. So it's like, it's upgrading. I don't think there's anything else to it. We will all stay in this together. I think the OTT, there was a time when satellite numbers were much larger than OTT. Today, the OTT numbers are larger than the satellite. I'm talking in terms of revenue. I'm not talking in terms of audience. But the point is, there is an equalizer. I think both are equally important. You can't take one off the other.
Would you agree, Lada?
Yeah, I do agree. That's a short answer.
To kind of wrap it up, and I think I should open it up for questions from the audience. You seem, Shobha, you seem to be saying that it's a win-win situation. How do you sum up the present and look at the future now? I mean, if I were to ask you quick wrap-ups from all of you,
I'll begin. You should begin.
I think it's a great time for content makers. It's also a great time for every platform, whether that's theatrical or not. I think we need to mix media. I would keep saying, and this is an idea that I'd thrown in some other platform too, saying that if you have a 10-episode series, Why don't you go with 8 episodes on the streaming platform and the last 2 episodes, the last 4 episodes, put it on the theater, help us grow. We are in a difficult time, we'll help you grow. That 8-week window had come down to 4 weeks, it's gone back to 8 weeks. Now that the theaters have opened, we all are in this business to work with each other. When we have a problem, we all stand with each other. The content business is not as fragmented. Yes, we have our difference of opinions and we all have our priorities. But I think the focus is about content and how you deliver it to your audience. I refuse to think that we are not in a good time. As he said, I'm an optimist too. I don't think anything is going to die out as long as you progress with the minds of the people. Yeah. It's about that, it's about nothing else.
Okay. Akshay, what do you?
I think it's also about, to sum this up, I probably feel that, see, television is doing what is required. Like we just discussed that, is television becoming OTT or OTT is becoming television? I think, honestly, we as OTT guys, now we want to get into television, because we want to be seen on a larger screen. What's happening with dramas in Marathi, because it's a huge thing, what's happening with drama, because that's also entertainment. That's not going, we all planning to make bigger dramas, the scale of it. We want to get into the Mughal Azam zone and Broadway type of things. Again, something that is evolving. Cinema, with Marathi cinema earlier, unfortunately, say about 50-60% of people used to make cinemas only to source subsidy and to have their own name and register themselves as producers. But now that times have changed with Nagaraj Manjule, Abhijit Panse, and a lot of other great filmmakers coming in. They are trying to give you that kind of experience. What is theaters doing at the moment? Theaters are also giving us experience. So I personally feel, I don't know whether everyone or anyone agrees with it, that now going to theater for me is like probably going to a resort or going to just as an outing. It's not just going to watch a cinema in theater. Unless and until you don't see experience in it now, you don't make it experiential, I don't know. I mean, I feel that that footfall is going to go down. So what is now happening with Geo Drive in Mumbai, and I've heard that a lot of other cinema halls are also trying to change their way of showing cinema. So everything including OTT, for me, I think it's all about giving experience. What kind of experience you're giving is going to determine the next few years of content and watching content. Because people have become choosy, every single person in India has become a critic. They think that they can do a better job. We all know, isn't it? What happened with Adi Purush, and what happened with whatever, the films that are coming in. Every single person thinks that, अरे ये इससे तो अच्छा और भी बन सकता था types. So why has that happened? How it is going to help or dent the cinema? I don't know. But to focus on technology, to focus on, so we also in Planet Marathi, we are not just focusing on content per se. We are also trying to give them experience by making the app converting the app into a super app. So my point is that, as long as we are giving people the experience, I think entertainment will always stay.
Yes, Mr. Kumar, in this kind of changing scenario, I mean, are we going to see a lot of policy interventions, changes coming from the government? I mean, will government also be on its toes in that sense?
First of all, that government need not play a role in this. In fact, this is people's choice. I mean, it's your own choice where you want to watch that content. I heard that when Brahmastra came into the cinemas, people were flocking the cinemas just to see the visual effects which have been created. So, of course, what he's saying and what they're saying is perfectly in sync with the, the experience people want to have. But at the same time, I'll say that the cinema industry, which all of you belong, it thrives. The revenues basically thrives on to the people going out into the theaters and watching it. That is for the cinema industry, but rest of it, like whatever series and all that, of course they thrive on the OTT. So initially when the OTTs and the internet platforms came up, it was thought that, they will be able to absorb the content and they will be sort of giving up all the content for user to select and watch. But as it is evolving, we are also seeing that, the filmmakers have complained that, the Netflixes and the Primes are blackmailing them. They're not giving them the reasonable value, or they're dictating the terms of uploading the content onto that. So this is bound to happen. I mean, sure, because, this is too restricted, and then because, there is a limitation to the number of applications a person would download on his mobile. So definitely, I think sooner or later, some kind of a super application is gonna come. So that's about the future, but I'm sure that, all of us, I still come across a lot of people who feel that, even if a good movie has come out, they will say that, I'll wait for the OTT to come. But then I also come across people that, they want to watch the content in the big cinema, come what may. They take out, they're busy people, but they go in the last show and watch that movie and still do that. Even I personally feel that, I've been watching, ever since my college day, in the front row, because, that used to be costing the least, and that time we didn't have pocket money. I still love to watch in the first row only, because, this gives you the feel of big cinema. So that is the way it is. It is personal preferences, and everything will have an audience. See, we are not just growing in terms of economy, but the population is growing. The content demand is growing just because of the population itself. We are the biggest, maturing population, which is demanding content. You see the kind of demand for kids content now, because, we have so many kids. This is the youngest population we're talking about in this country. So I'm sure this demand is going to grow in every place. But then we as filmmakers sitting out here, we should always think that, we should try to produce a content which will be loved by people, not just because it's sheer money. Money will come as its offshoot, but try to produce a content which is meaningful, which is rational, and also at the same time entertaining. I mean, it should not bore you with the physics and the geography about it. So it should attract people and should give a good message. That's what my request would be. Thank you.
I think my fellow panelists have already, summed it up very eloquently. So I'll just say three things. Cinema is not going anywhere. Audiences are telling us to smarten up, which we are trying to. And thirdly, if we just go by the sheer numbers, currently less than 10% of the Indian population actually goes to cinemas. I think it's 6 or 7%. So you're looking at a huge potential out there, and that is something we all should be chasing. Thank you.
Thank you all, and I'm going to open this, to the audience. But before that, a morning conversation I had with, an independent filmmaker from Assam, Bobby Sarma Barua. She sent me a note saying that she would have loved to be here, for the discussion, but couldn't. She had to fly back. And she says that OTTs, during COVID, there was still an openness so far as the independent filmmakers were concerned, so far as the language filmmakers were concerned. But now the conditions, the conditions attached now that, the situation has kind of turned around. And she was saying that, like she gave an example that on the OTT platform, you see just about 1 or 2 Assamese films representing the whole of the Northeast, So even while we are rejoicing the rise of Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, Kannada cinema, we have an independent filmmaker from Assam bringing this to light, Yeah.
Please tell her that after Planet Marathi, we've come here to Planet, we started something called as Planet Goem. And from there, we are reaching Planet Assam also.
Wonderful.
So giving an opportunity to people, makers, talent of those regions is what we aim to. The earlier question was about...
she was saying that, during COVID, there was a lot more openness from the streaming platforms.
But I think it's still the same. I don't know if, in fact, we have started taking even more now that I have on my left is the person who's sitting who regulates, my content or who has an eye on content. Whatever happened in the past has definitely, for us also, it is a matter of sensibility. We have to be really sensible and make sure that we don't really hurt the social fabric and stuff like that. But the openness is still there. I mean, I don't think that we are curtailing anywhere in terms of the content that we are choosing at the moment.
I will, however, agree. Yes, the matrix of all this has changed. There was a lot of digital cinema because theaters were not functioning. There was a lot of digital cinema that came in, which now the major players have said there's nothing called digital cinema. And I sort of agree with this. What is digital and theatrical cinema? Cinema is cinema. So either you make it for an audience and you are able to plug on it, and if it is a good film, why will I lose a revenue stream by not going to the theaters? I need to understand this. So all those makers who thought that they could get away by making films that were catering to a very small audience, we need to understand that this is also a business. Yes, it's creative, but it is also a business. It might come second, but it does exist. So this conversation or this honeymoon period where anything would get taken up because you just needed content, people were at home and you had a captive audience, that time is gone. So now we also need to improve and say, okay, we need to fight with every other medium that there is. So yes, it has changed. As far as Assamese cinema is concerned, why do we have just one or two filmmakers or films that come, that too over a period of time? We do not have theaters. I really want to point this out to every distribution, exhibition team that there is, that we need more infrastructure. If we want to grow the regional cinema, then that state, for that language, needs to have that amount of theaters. The reason Marathi cinema, or Bengali cinema, or Punjabi cinema worked is because of the concentration of theaters in that state.
Telugu cinema, highest density.
Exactly. I mean, Telugu, the reason we speak about Telugu is just that. It is, we Indians love to go to the cinemas. I don't think there's an exception there. The point is we need to create more infrastructure. It's all hand in hand.
And I would like to bring it to the notice of Mr. Kumar, if we could have, we used to have one in Pragati Maidan in Delhi, Shakuntalam, which used to be a space for independent cinema and, language cinema to play. I think in the rush for multiplexes somewhere, that, boutique cinema concept catering to, alternate cinema has almost died out. I wish we could, maybe, Siri Fort is there. If we could look at those possibilities, it would be wonderful.
Definitely. And I would also take this opportunity to thank the moderator for such a great session which she conducted. And all the eminent panelists, we sort of, such a good discussion and intertwining subjects. And this was a very wide subject, and to have such a fruitful discussion is very nice. And
we would like to take questions now, if, for the panel. Please do introduce yourself before asking the question, please.
Hi, I'm Santosh Kher, founder of Creative Vibe Productions. Firstly, just a comment. The discussion was very enlightening. Learned a lot, so thank you so much. My question is, Shobha ma'am, to you, or even to others, but to your point that cinema is cinema. But audience now has evolved, become more intelligent, and the exposure is quite a lot because of Netflix, Amazon, all these platforms also stream a lot of international content. So an advice to the content maker, should there be a clear bifurcation or split between content for OTT and content for theatrical release? Because the grandeur for theatrical release, or the kind of madness that audience wants to see, why will audience go to watch that cinema? Because to your point, anyways, it will come on OTT. So why will they go? So should there be any difference between content for OTT and content for a theatrical release? Otherwise, why will someone go and watch?
So there is content for OTT. It is called originals, web series. The platforms need that stickiness of 8 hours of content versus 2 hours of content, which is why they hook you onto it, which is why there's binge watching. So that is what is content for OTT, if you ask me specifically. So that's the reason of this episodic content, that you can choose to stop at a point and continue where you are. Theatricals, I'm talking about cinema. Cinema is appointment viewing. It's not at your convenience. So you will have to go when it's playing in the theater. So your draw, the onus on the maker and the producers is extremely high to ensure there's marketing, there is publicity, there is distribution. There's a lot of things that come to play in a theatrical film, which is much higher stakes, which is the reason you'll realize that the number of films that now get into the theater, why the OTT platforms are saying theatrical release karke aao. So they know what the value is. Otherwise, a lot of films that were niche films have been made at exorbitant numbers. And I don't want to point fingers here. The point is we all need to be conscious, if it is a niche film, it needs to be made in a niche budget. That's when it'll work. That's when you will see the platforms also agreeing to pick this up. You can't make a 100 crore film and say it goes direct to digital. What is the revenue model of digital? You need to understand that too. Is it going to give me that many new subscriptions? If it's not going to give me that many subscriptions, why will I pay this money? So these are all questions. There will be a mixed match. Yes, we will come back to some normalcy, as some films will get made for OTT alone. But the numbers and the economics of this will need to be rationalized.
Thank you.
This one.
Of all the sessions that I have seen, and between the time I have raised my hand, the internal discussions have answered most of my questions. One thing that Shobha said was niche films, niche budgets. You also spoke about the theaters not being enough. Now the catch is that the multiplexes, I'm sorry, I'm saying something blasphemous, and it is my opinion, and I would prefer to keep it that way, is that they are trying to not just cannibalize, but destroy the single screen cinema. Now, this is my statement or my impression. The question that I'd like to ask was, cinema was supposed to be, when I was a kid, mass entertainment. As Mr. Kumar said, that we used to sit in the Baranawalas. The question is that, is there, and we knew from that cinema day, that one single day, that if you had a 75 rupee ticket or 100 rupee ticket, people will flock into the thing. Do we have a time where people can come back into cinema? Mass, is it still a mass entertainment?
There were two parts to your question. The first was the number, the density of screens.
Yes.
The density of screens and multiplex versus single screens. This used to be an issue where, I'll tell you the convenience that the multiplex got in. They got a lot of convenience. There were multiple screens at one point, and you needed to deal with one person for a national level. Whereas with a single screen, you're talking with every single cinema owner and cutting different deals. So for a producer, it was also difficult. You need to understand the number of films that release today. You have at least an average of about 4 films that release every Friday. At least, I use the word 4 films. Which is why now they have come together. I know that the single screens, more or less, they've all come together. They've formed a body where they now have 3 people as representatives. That's all that we talk to. The chain of cinemas, the chain of single screens, have now similar terms. Maybe not the same as multiplexes, because the quality of equipment and projection is not the same. But there is definitely some normalcy coming there. So I don't think that one can cannibalize the other. I, for one, would love to see a mass entertainer in a single screen. Having said that, the values, because single screens were by the original structure, they were larger screens. So where a multiplex gives you about 200 to 250 seaters, what you have in single screen is 600 to 800 seaters. It's impossible to fill that on a niche film. So which is why the multiplexes know that you have to go only to them. And if there is an exclusivity, you will charge a premium. This is the nature of any business that we're in. That's one part. Second, are we in mass entertainers? Of course. Bhool Bhulaiya was just a mass entertainer. What else was it? We've chosen, with the OTT players coming in, when we started making cinema that was edgy, we realized that we did, as he rightly said, we makers decided that we would make edgy stuff and material that did not need censorship. So we started using bad language, things that we cannot, and this is now what is still coming out in theaters. Now, the OTT has said compulsory, you have to go to the theater, release, and now come to me. So all this that we thought was edgy, the family can't view together. You cannot view as a family together. You cannot even watch it with your partner, forget children or parents. So that's where the trouble is. For me, any film exercise would take about a year from ideation to conclusion. So wait for this year to wear out. I think we'll come back. We're there.
See, there are 2 points here. If other people finish their questions, then I'd like to continue, because I don't want to monopolize.
Okay, so that,
Or
I
I
think
can
you have
take
been
it
very
offline.
democratic.
Actually, I would like.
Yeah,
Actually,
please,
I
please.
just like to say one thing, that these people from other session are already waiting. They are already hovering around, and so we are overstepping on time. And then this is a discussion which is endless. I mean, this is so intriguing to each one of us that we would like to have more questions and more answers. And I think we can just wrap up with whatever one, two comes.
My question is to the audience is, that, and this is something that might help us also to understand. What if tomorrow, and I would like to have a few answers if possible. What would be your choice? Would you, if given a choice, if we start streaming web series of say 4 hours or something like that in theaters, would you like to watch it in theaters? Are the people open? Would you like to go and see and spend 4 hours in a theater? No? Not at all.
Divided house. I saw Nupur nodding, and then there are people who are saying no.
I would answer that slightly differently. If it is a successful one, and you've dropped 8 episodes, and then the last 4 episodes are in the theater only, it's not on OTT.
Okay.
So I wait for the technical 4 weeks, 8 weeks, and then I will drop it on OTT. I can't wait. I've already binge watched 8 episodes. Then there's an urgency. I'll go watch it. Otherwise, no.
So it's for the binge watch experience thing. Okay. Thank you so much.
You were planning to say something, weren't you?
Exactly. So experience, right?
It's too much to go there and sit in a theater for 4 hours at a stretch. That's the...
I'll just add to it. In IFI, people are already complaining to us as an organizing committee that, in 2 hours, we are not having a break, we are not getting water, we are not getting snacks. So it's difficult. Let's close the session, I think.
Thanks so much for joining us. And I think Akshay has left us with a thought to chew on, and maybe outside with tea and coffee, we can discuss this further. Thanks so much to all my panelists for being here. Thanks for the audience to be here as well. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for such an engaging session.